and now we are going back to Experian again. But it's a very, very interesting panel, so I'm really looking forward to this discussion. This is a panel who will speak about AI within Experian, the challenges that we see, the challenges around AI laws, regulatory challenges, and use cases in Gen AI within Experian. So, without further ado, allow me to introduce the Experian team. Benedine, Analytics Team Lead for the Netherlands, Buse, Analytics Team Lead for the Nordic countries, and Leandro, Head of Data Science and Analytical Platform for the EPAC region. So welcome to the stage.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna sit in the dark. Welcome everyone. There were great presentations, mind-blowing ones, so it will be tough to be on the stage after all these great presentations. So let me start with a quote. And then let's see if there will be anyone that will remember this quote from a movie. I'm evolving with a pace that you can't even begin to comprehend. But I'm here for you, Theodore. I will always be here for you. And I will be growing, changing, learning, and just like you. Anyone remembering that quote? Yes, this is her. So this is from the movie Her from 2013. So it had been 11 years, and we really couldn't comprehend that it would evolve that fast, and AI would be the part of our daily lives. So AI, we are still trying to explore the transformative impact, the disruptive impact, and also the regulations being set by the AI Act. Currently, we are trying to still identify how we will use it and take it our lives. So in Experian, we have already developed AI solutions, integrated it into our products, and currently using every day. So today we will bring you all these use cases that we see from our perspective. And then I will be talking about the AI Act that is also coming very soon. So I will be briefly summarizing how we see it. Then my colleague Leandro will be complementing this part because he's very close to the council. He was in the shaping of that act. So he will be complementing the act summary, but also giving some examples from our tools, solutions, how we see that we can overcome with the challenges that will come to our lives with the AI Act. And just a brief note, today also Danish Finanstilsynet just published, when we were in this room, the good practices, how to integrate AI into our businesses. So today's speech from our side won't be covering this one, but I think that's also exciting that we will have another topic to follow up very soon. So let me introduce myself very briefly. I'm the Analytics Lead Nordics, as Bo also introduced. We are helping our clients to have analytical tools and consulting services by us, and then stay compliant together when we work together on the regulatory compliances. And I have Benedine today from Netherlands. She is also the analytics lead, my counterparty in the Dutch market. And Leandro is our head of data science and analytical platforms in EMEA and APAC. So Benedine, the stage is yours to start with the Gen AI use cases.
Yeah, sure. It's really exciting to share with you guys our little strategy around it. And now we are really trying to make a success of embedding Gen AI in our strategy. I hope that we could share with you some key examples of what we are finding as good use cases and learn from you as well. And before I dive into the specific use cases, I really want to share a little bit more our strategy and what I think is really making us successful of really embedding it into our organization and continuously evolving. So we've all seen how big the disruption will be with AI. And I think as executives and team leads, we really have a corporate responsibility to upskill our people and to get acquainted with what does it actually mean for us as a society, and to really embrace this new technology to gear our teams for what is going to change. So in this way, I think it's important that we look at the evaluation or the evolution of AI. We saw in the previous in video how fast it will grow, and we need to look at it in terms of how we are embedding it into our business strategy as a strategic pillar, because it will be a critical competitive differentiator. If you look at Experian, we are really leveraging AI at the moment to unlock value in our product innovation, not just from our normal products, but also in our internal processes and our operations. We really have promoted the value of machine learning over a lot of the years already, and we've shown on how much value could be from leveraging a data-driven strategy and combining that with AI. But incorporating Gen AI now is really a game changer to us. And our mission with Gen AI is really focused on employing a much more agile way and really focusing on the value that it brings to our organization. So at the moment, we're really focusing first on the key drivers that can help us optimize our productivity, improve our customer engagement, and really looking at more disruptive product innovation. And we're focusing currently on the high impact wins while building up our foundations as we are becoming much more mature. So if we take a look at how we are executing our strategy, we had to put in place key components. And this is, I think, one of the questions we had previously. We really need to make sure that our entire organization is geared to actually empower them to take on this responsibility of really responsible use of this technology. We put first in place the important governance around it to make sure that everyone is well aware. We also did compliance assessments first. If you want to participate, you need to first do the compliance assessment, and then we actually need to undergo a training as well. But we also put in place AI councils to actually monitor the use of AI as well in different use cases. This really helps us to promote the responsible and ethical use of it in a compliant way. The second step that we did is to make an environment for our teams that they could experiment in a really secure way. So we created an AI ecosystem in a really walled garden where they could trial these new technologies. What was critical is also the investment of upskilling and creating development plans and actual learning and development websites. And we actually have a Gen AI university available for our teams. And this has actually been incorporated in each person's development goals as well. So from this way, we are really equipping our teams with the necessary tools, the skills, and then also making them aware of what capabilities that the technology could provide. Then the last step, I think, is the most critical one. And we are really promoting that all business units are looking at Gen AI as a productivity scaler. Here, we're really promoting that each team is really incorporating it and looking at their processes and seeing what can I actually do from our side to see which component of my job can I break down in a process and a task and optimize that task with embedding Gen AI. So in my opinion, it's really quite important. It's not just the nerds in the dark rooms that's using it. Everyone in each function is looking at how they can optimize Gen AI in our business. So I think if you look at that way, it's from data to actual product to analytics, or risk and compliance officers. We're looking at sales, marketing. It's really a cross-function, Experian One strategy for us to upskill, to bring ourselves to a next level. And this is really the fundamental part of our innovation strategy. So then we get to the more use cases, and I think everyone is trialing a little bit. From a risk-based approach, we had to look at what brings us the most value. I think as a tech company, the obvious one was really bringing on an AI, the code assistant quite easily or quickly. We found with our developers, this is really boosting them quite a lot. Where they have much more quality development, they're developing much quicker. We also found that our employee engagement scores went up quite a lot because they could do and achieve a lot more. So here, what we're doing is specifically where we're leveraging the technology a lot is because we could have single prompts that is really producing really complex, say, instructions. We found that if we could leverage this technology, we could translate from SAS to Python to help system migrations quite quicker. Introducing also some cost savings. What was quite nice, we refactored a lot of you can imagine a big bureau has a lot of legacy code that's in there. So really looking at your pipeline and trying to optimize it try to see where is the, like say, components that you need to optimize. And I think what we're really finding is really a productivity scaler is documenting quite a lot to make sure that it's transparent in what's happening. And this is really like a massive boost for our development community, and I think it will become like a critical part of every developer. Like this is something that they will all want in the future. It's not that you could give it to someone and not expect it. And this is also why we actually introduced this virtual assistant in our modeling platform for Ascent. The second part, of course, we are a data company, so we're always looking at new innovative ways to actually enhance our data sources. So what we did in Spain is actually built up an LLM model to actually look at like PDF documents, and then we're extracting some of the, like say, the information into like a structured data set, and of course then we can use that for any kind of decisioning, automation. I know some of the, like say, application processes, sometimes you get tax reports or innovation or income statements. Like if you could automate those data points into a process, you are improving your acceptance. So it's quite a really good value driver. I've also seen similar use cases for some of our clients from ESG, where we're looking at the sustainability reports and then being able to translate quite a lot of the factors and attributes from the report into a structured database, and you could use that then for reporting. I think one of them really fond about is like the automated reporting that we are using. So here, what was quite nice is we trained it to see like we have a reference table with results of say monitoring of scores or, for example, data quality, and we actually trained it to interpret it and then automating like the reporting into a document. And this is really for me fabulous, because really who wants to do repeatable documentation? If you could have someone or AI do it much quicker in a very standardized approach, it really is a productivity scaler, and you could have documentation going out to many different customers. So this is a really good one for me. And then the last one, I think we're also leveraging chatbox quite a lot. I think that the chat box provides, I think, a different dimension of how we're interacting now with data insights, because suddenly you can interact with it. You can ask a question, and you can be really tailored. I'm asking this specific question, you get a specific response. So here, I think we really looked at combining LLM models and RAG models to actually see how we could obviously train it with more proprietary information on our organization. And I think what was quite critical to see some of the developments on data, like we actually trained a data catalog where we actually understand, okay, this is a specific data set, you know, and you could interact with the bot to ask, what is this attribute, where is it coming from, what is the actual meaning of the attribute. And this, you could imagine, it saves so much more time to, instead of like going through multiple documentation or finding it, you have it essentially like instantly. So it really helps from that transparency point. A second use case on the chat box is we're actually training a little bit of analytics Einstein for like Experian, where we are really trying to train it with our methodology standards, like our knowledge, best practices, also trying to make sure that we understand like our functionality. We're innovating quite a lot to build, like say, new toolkits to really like make sure that we are leveraging our global community and what we're building everywhere, so that it's, if you do have a question, to give me the top 5 analytical solutions that we have built to help a customer reduce fraud, for example. So from that way, we are really leveraging it to like almost get the knowledge sharing of the company all to one accessible point. And I think the last one is really important for me from a corporate responsibility point of view. In the US, we recently launched a Experian virtual assistant, where it's actually more focused on a bot that will help a person with financial planning and education. And I think this is quite critical to explain to someone if they have specific, like say, financial questions. Sometimes as a consumer, you're not that willing to talk to a person necessarily, but if you could ask a lot of questions to a bot, it could really help a lot in terms of like driving financial inclusion and education for a person. And I think we had the discussion with the DCAs as well. If you could start to provide that to your, like say, indebted consumers, you could actually coach them to actually better behavior. So this is actually quite a good use case where I'm finding it's a really bigger impact. But I think when you look at these, it's like the really of the beauty of these use cases is that you're really formulating a blueprint that we could really like go and customize to any type of context. And this is where I think you can really like get compound growth. not just for us, but for our clients. And I think as a society, we need to come more into the headspace of co-creating. We should be really leveraging on each other's strengths and doing planning ahead. We also know from the accelerated growth that we're seeing from technology, but also from a sustainability point. I think it's important that we plan for the future so that this disruptive things that will come will be something that we're more geared to. And I think a perfect example of that is perhaps the AI law, but this I will leave then to Busa.
Thank you, Benedine. So, as Benedine gave a lot of good examples, but all these models will be subject to AI Act very soon. So actually in May 2024, very recently, the council just gave a final go on the act, which means that it will be very soon coming into the forces. And it is aiming to harmonize the set of rules on how to use artificial intelligence. It's also aiming to build the trust in the society, because we also understand from the discussions that the evolution is fast, but to use it in the credit risk area or in the banking sector, as Jakob or Marcus and Nick mentioned, we are not still there 100% to embed it into our credit risk management processes. So it is important by this act to build that trust into the use of AI, while also ensuring the prevention of the EU citizens from health, safety, and fundamental rights perspective to secure them. The AI Act will be applying only to the areas in the EU law, and it will provide some exemptions to the military and defense services or research projects, so there will be a couple of exemptions to be under that law. And after being signed, it will be published in the EU official journal. And after being published in that journal, after 20 days, it will enter into force. And within 2 years, we will need to comply with all the requirements in the AI Act with some exemptions for sure. Which means that if this happens, and the May 2024 approval shows that, so most probably around 2026, we will be under that AI Act. So how the Act defines the AI system? It defines the system as a machine-based system designed to operate with some autonomy inside and with some adaptiveness features, and infers the inputs and use them to understand how to generate the outcomes itself, and in terms of content creation, predictions, decisions, and also the recommendations. So the Act defines an AI system, but it doesn't make it very clear from our world, because we are not 100% sure if the machine learning models with logistic regression, for example, in our world, in the credit risk model developments, we use logistic regression, but it doesn't specify these kind of details if logistic regression will fall under this AI system description, or will it be more advanced machine learning techniques like decision trees or neural networks. So this is still not clear, but from Experian point of view, we believe that logistic regression or any traditional techniques should not be seen under this one, but it is more advanced machine learning techniques will fall under that criteria. By being said that, we also talked about GenAI today a lot, started with Samantha from the movie Her. This is also a typical example of GenAI, how they are treated under the AI Act. They are treated as general purpose AI models, and they are treated under a separate section under the Chapter 5. And it brings also a lot of requirements if you will use the GenAI models or if you will provide these GenAI models to the market. If you will be working with these models, if you will be putting in the market GenAI models, if you will be the providers, then you are seen, according to the Act, under 2 different categories. If as providers, you are carrying a systemic risk, and if providers, you are not carrying a systemic risk. And of course, if you are under without systemic risk, the requirements are lighter. But if you are carrying a systemic risk, the requirements are much stricter. So first of all, whichever category you will be under when putting the market with these general purpose AI models, first of all, you need to have an up-to-date technical documentation available to the public, just detailing the capabilities and the limitations of your models. And you should also make it very transparent to the users of it, because when you have these kind of AI models, they will be also integrated into other AI systems by other providers. So they should be knowing all the limitations or the capabilities of your models, and also what kind of training data sets you have used, so that because it is impacting all the content creation or all the outputs coming from these kind of Gen AI models. So these should be very clear under the technical documentation and very transparent to the public for their good. When it comes to being a carrying systemic risk provider, then more requirements are coming, as mentioned. First of all, these providers should have very comprehensive risk management systems, having risk assessment, identifying their risks, their potential outcomes, and also the risk mitigation actions in place to overcome these kind of risks when they happen. All the transparency will be much more stricter on the providers with systemic risks, and they should be regularly reporting all these things to the regulatory authorities. Besides the Gen AI models or general purpose AI models, of course, the Act is focusing on a risk-based approach. So any machine learning models, any AI systems that you will be using will be subject to, first of all, a risk categorization. Starting with, there will be already areas that is totally unacceptable. So this will be banned from the system, like social scoring. We have heard about it in the COVID times, I think, in China. But it will be totally forbidden in the EU market. And also it will be prohibited to be used the predictive policing, such as profiling or use of biometric data to categorize people according to their race, their sexual orientation. So it will be also forbidden within EU. After the banned ones, let's come to the ones that will be possible to use, and the Act is trying to make it possible and trustable to be used. So we have minimal risks, limited risks, and high risks. When it comes to minimal risks, we can think about the video games or spam filtering, very basic applications that is no harm to our citizenship rights. And they are not under any regulatory requirements, so we will be continuing to use them as we are doing it. But when it comes to the limited risk, let's think about image or video processing kind of solutions. And they will be having very lighter regulatory requirements, like only transparency, for example. And when it comes to the high risk, it is the services directly affecting the citizens' lives, and creditworthiness assessment is one of them, which is very critical for us, because at least in Experian, this is our business. And also I know that you are also in the creditworthiness assessment areas, working within the credit risk area in our businesses. So it will impact us a lot, because the high-risk categorized AI systems will require the stricter regulations, since it is carrying a risk to cause a harm in our lives. The high-risk AI systems will require these stricter rules and also a conformity assessment that I will come when I describe the high-risk requirements in more detail. But let's count the areas that we should be aware of from today, and we will be working on in the next days. They are risk management systems, human oversight, data governance, robustness and accuracy, ethics and non-discrimination, which is very important, continuous improvement and monitoring, and also the conformity assessment. What should we understand from these areas? So what kind of regulatory requirements are coming to our lives? Under the risk management systems, if we are using any high-risk AI systems in our businesses, First of all, we should have good risk management practices and processes in place to identify any risk that can accelerate from the used AI systems, any misuses or structural risks or any accidents that could arise from the use of AI systems. You will need to identify all these potential risks from the very beginning. And then these risk assessments should be conducted regularly. So these practices should be in place so that they are conducted regularly. And there should be also in place these risk mitigation actions. So this is the initial thing I think we will all start doing from today on to get prepared with these AI Acts. Data governance is also another key because the data accuracy, data relevance, and the data representativeness that will be used to design the AI system is critical because it's all affecting the outcomes of the system. For training data sets and the test data sets, we should have very high quality data. So the data quality is something that we should focus on. Documenting all the data requirements, the design of the system, what kind of methodologies that we are using in the design of the AI system, and the evaluation results, so the performance metrics, they should all be in a detailed way documented in the AI systems documentations. So there is also a huge documentation requirements coming with this act. Another very important thing is GDPR is already in our lives. So again, in the Act as well, the protection of the privacy and the rights of individuals will be key. So the data sets that we will use to train these systems or test these systems should be also anonymized from personal data perspective, and we should be very careful about the consents that we receive from the consumers before using their data in any training or testing purposes. When we are doing the robustness and accuracy checks, we can use the real data sets, but also synthetic data is very useful. Leandro will go through that use case, how we should benefit from synthetic data sets in that space. So this is also stated in the Act that this is important to test these systems on different data sets. For transparency and explainability, it is important to understand the AI systems or machine learning models, how they ended up with this decision, because it's not so easy to explain it as we could explain the traditional model's outcomes. So it will be very crucial to detailedly explain how we ended up these decisions while using the AI systems. Model explainability will help a lot. Shapley values generally used in the market. We are also using it, but we also have a model explainability setup. So this is important that these kind of explainability reports are in place in front of the auditors and also for internal preparedness. And biasness and fairness will be also key. So the models should not be rewarding or punishing some subgroups in less favor to the other groups. So there should be some biasness checks and mitigation actions and also the fairness metrics in the place. On top of all, there should be always human oversight. We can't trust the system totally, so we should be on top of it, understanding the outcomes, but also have the rights always to override the decisions of these systems. And of course, continuous improvements, monitorings are very crucial. And then we have finally the conformity assessments before putting in place any AI system to be used in the market. All these risk assessments should be in place. They should be thoroughly performed. And if we pass all the tests, then there will be a stamp that it can be used, CE mark, and then we will be able to use it. So now I will turn to you, Leandro. Looking forward to hear how you have the insights from the council and how it will evolve.
Sure, thanks, Buzi. And well, just to present myself again, my name is Leandro Guerra. I have been with Experian for about 13 years now, which 4 of them I have worked in Experian in the office in São Paulo, Brazil. I'm Brazilian, but I'm married and an Italian, so that explains why I'm here in Europe. And but now I'm also an European citizen, so I got the Italian citizenship. And so over all of these years in Experian, I had the chance and the opportunity to work more on the side of developing new things. Well, by the time when I joined the company, those things were pretty new. And I was able to see the evolution that we had, and actually not just us, but the whole industry on that matter. And then about 2.5 years ago, I had the chance to enter the EU task force that it's led by Axis, the Credit Bureau Association. And since then, we have been speaking with the regulators themselves, with the European Parliament and the European Commission, because we wanted to understand exactly what they were talking about when they had the very first and very broad definition about what AI was. And we wanted to expose also our point of view, because especially when we think about the creditworthiness, we are already heavily regulated. So there are the EBA, EBC, there are all the things that we already have to comply with, to do not mention GDPR in this case. So we were trying to position a point of view that could risk and lead to over-regulation that particularly would cause the contrary effect that the EU is trying to have, that is promoting the utilization of AI, the competition that we discussed earlier before lunch in terms of this landscape. And long story short, after hearing and understanding different point of views, and the positioning really depends on where on the political spectrum you are. So, and then you have a totally different view about what exactly is AI, whether it should be applied or not. But our main point, it was, one, to narrow the definition about what AI is, because they were including everything that does inferencing. I mean, that is the models, they do inferencing, so everything is AI. So we not necessarily agree with that point of view. And after all those years and all these conversations, we have submitted a paper to the Commission that actually a kind of a case study, where we explain from the very beginning what is a scorecard, data preparation, and then we evolve through the main techniques that we use, linear regression, logistic regression, decision tree boosted models, and then we have prepared a summary actually, where we say that, look, none of these algorithms, they fall under the categories that you are claiming that they are high risk AI. So they don't have adaptativeness, they don't self-learn, they don't have autonomy at all. So everything has a human oversight. So, well, hopefully we did that trying to get their attention, and it seems that we were successful, because not this Friday, the following one, we are going to meet the Commission again. And we are going, because they asked for clarifications on the paper. So for me, it's a good sign. Because if they were not interested, they would say, okay, thank you for caring, but we don't. And now, no, it seems that they care. So it's a very good thing. And when you look to the details, and then you start to understanding the way they are thinking to build the act, and that actually led us to very interesting findings. And one of them, it's the use case on synthetic data. Now, synthetic data is not something necessarily new. It has been around with different and more simpler techniques. However, from our colleague from NVIDIA, that there was a slide where he was showing the LVMs, the large vision models, and then there were one symbol in the center on the top that was a representation of one of the algorithms that now enable us to develop synthetic data, not just for the sake of the anonymization, which, by the way, it's a misconception, because synthetic data is not necessarily anonymous data. I mean, it's not that I don't know that Benedine is Benedine or Boozy is Boozy. Actually, I am reproducing totally different data based on the real one, that different data holds the statistical significance and the properties of the original data set. And from there, you can build the models as good as they were using the original data. So that was the standard approach with the synthetic data that would solve many issues, especially the compliance one. Now, because you have those kind of algorithms and the so-called Gen AI. And it's funny because when everybody started to talk about Gen AI, it was all about the large language models, because actually they are quite impressive. I am a subscriber of ChatGPT myself, so I pay for that because it's beautiful. But it's not only about that. So the main point is, okay, this has been used mainly on structured data, but we still have a world that it's governed essentially by tabular data. So can those things be applied to the tabular data that we have in the bureaus, on the data centers in the banks, and many other things? And if we apply the Gen AI there, on which we can create the synthetic data, can we have not just the compliance requirements attended, but can we have maybe better models? And the answer was yes. So essentially, the utilization of synthetic data, you can think in an analogy that it enhances the resolution of the data set. So think about a pixelated image. So you cannot see very well, but then there are the algorithms that they improve the images and they make it on a very good resolution. And we are doing the same thing with the data sets. So, and because you have data points that you have never seen before, but you didn't have access to that before, so you are filling the gaps or completing the dots on that particular data set. When you present this to a model, the model then is able to learn better because the model has more examples. So, and then by having more examples, what happens? You narrow the gap between what the model has been learning during the training phase to what has been happening in the testing and the validation phase. And because you have narrowed that gap, well, you are doing one of the things that we care the most, that it's about the overfitting and the stability, but actually you are also bringing naturally the fairness of the model up. And you are reducing the bias. In every single experiment that we did so far, in all of them, the models, they were much more balanced. And if you will look to the distribution of the variables importance or the overall contribution of a group of variables to that particular decision, actually you have, for example, 60%, almost a Pareto, with 20% of the variables representing 80% of the weights, that changed dramatically. So you have something much more equalized, and we know how good that is, because potentially you may have a very strong rule that could be a very strong variable that points out that, well, if that event happens, then I have 70% chance of being in default. But that potentially could be applied in your policy rules, but then for the model, you get a much more distributed point for each one of these attributes, and this is what in the mind of the European Commission when they speak on the EU AI Act about the fairness and avoiding bias, because their concern, apart from the technicalities, is that we will have cases like we had with Apple, with some American banks, and etc., that you are privileging some particular groups. That, as I said, happens naturally. And the good point is that we have done, I mean, just to quote some couple of use cases. So we have one for origination models where we have applied the synthetic data. We are able to improve the final performance in 15%. What this 15% means? It means that type 1 and type 2 errors, so accepting more the goods and rejecting more the bad, so I'm reducing that error, led to a 15% reduction in the total losses. So the losses from, yes, the money that I'm losing because I'm accepting bad people, but also the one that I'm not earning because I am not accepting the good ones. And then, well, this is proportional to the size of the portfolio. So speaking about a €1 million portfolio, you have 150K and so on. So that is scales, and that is actually quite beautiful. The other point, it was about the rejected applicants. So, okay, I have rejected these people that potentially they could have been good, but my policy said that they were not good. What if in this reject inference process, we also have the injection of the synthetic data? And actually there is where we had, actually a mind-blowing result, because we have two scenarios. One on which we were accepting the same amount of people, but with a better model that reduced the bad rate from 1.52 to 1.27. That was, quite significant. But then there was the other choice. What if I keep my bad rate the same, because I might be happy with that, my risks would be already controlled, and I start accepting more people. So we were able to accept 17% more consumers, preserving the original, let's call it the original bad rate, and then the revenues, they skyrocket. Because, well, come on, it's a lot of people that you are accepting more. And you were doing this because you have this synthetic data, that resolution on the data, that it's much better than before. And one may ask, and I might be anticipating one of the questions, that is, how much synthetic data should we use? And it follows a pattern, and it's quite beautiful. So you can see that you have an increase as more you are adding the synthetic data, and then you reach a plateau. So you know approximately, because of course that depends on the case, the quality of the original data set, because still there is the point of, garbage in, garbage out. The machine learning does not do any miracles, although it seems to do, but not yet, maybe one day. And, but still, you have that relationship. So you know how much you can push, and then you know precisely how should be configured in terms of infrastructure, the environment to run that thing. And particularly we have been running our Ascent platform that Herman was showing in the morning. And the results, they are really fantastic. There are many more things that can be done with the synthetic data, to be very honest. These examples that I gave, they were pretty much related to, let's say, data augmentation and data quality improvement. Now, there are a couple of things that I would like to highlight. The first one, to the main points that Boozy highlighted, that they are now going to be required in the EU AI Act, the synthetic data is the key to solving them. And it's not my word, so it's not that now Leandro is saying that. So there is a research paper from the European Commission that states that synthetic data is the future of AI. And then it has several pages explaining why that narrows the gap between regulation and reality, and that's why this enlightens the utilization of the machine learning models. So it's something that it's already being noted. And to my surprise, which is extremely good, it's something coming from the European Commission. So they are already looking at that and said, okay, maybe we are creating additional challenge with a new regulation, but look, there are also some points that you can already think of to solve them. And synthetic data was relevant even before the EU AI Act, because we already had the GDPR. So then it leads us to other use cases that we can have with the synthetic data besides the data augmentation. So what if we could control the synthetic data that we are creating? And okay, we want to remove the bias, but what if I want to add a bias to test different scenarios? What happens to my portfolio if, I don't know, it aged, or if there is more inflation, or if there is less inflation? What happens if the GDP grows, and etc.? So we could map these macroeconomic trends back to the portfolio and simulate the data that would be actually representing that scenario, and then you revolutionize the stress testing. So you have a totally different point of view with the Gen AI for the stress testing. Another point is, well, we are using synthetic data. It's cool, synthetic data points, records in a table, or cat's image, or whatever. But I could create synthetic identities. And then if I am a fraudster, and I am clever enough to do that, I could overcome any kind of system. So what if we do a step back, think ahead of the fraudsters? Hopefully no fraudsters are listening to us now. And, but what if we could create those synthetic identities to do a sort of penetration test in the fraud systems. And then we can understand how fragile or how secure they are. And then even by adding this kind of, let's say, a perturbation in the system that it's actually creating these different data points, I can maybe anticipate a trend, I can potentially update my model, I can have models pre-trained based on specific scenarios, and then I will be no longer so surprised when a pandemic emerges. So that, wow, everybody was at home, nobody was going around, and then we have those massive data drifts that were experienced in every single industry in the world. So we already have an example in the database, so there are other economic conditions that we already have historical database, so potentially you could use also the synthetic data to make it happen, and then you have a switch that can be done for different purposes. One may also claim that the synthetic data, it's yet another black box approach, and which under the lights of the UAI Act might be a concern. But actually, one of the points of the Act is human oversight. And everything that you do with a synthetizer, it has the human oversight, and then you can trace back not the original data, but given the transparency, data traceability, and all the other components, you can pick it up that and then put in a beautiful documentation with the highlight points that are still to come out from the commission, because pretty much the text is ready, but they are now going into the fine-tuning of the policies and what precisely they meant to the things that they wrote in there. So I think, honestly speaking, the future, as people say that, wow, this technology scares me, but actually that technology, I mean, excites me a lot, because I can do something now that I never ever imagined that I could have been doing, and I am doing. So I think it's amazing, and we are just in the beginning. So I think that would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Buzi?
Thank you very much, Leandro. I think regarding the time, we should now wrap up, but I think we should mention first the key takeaways from our session. First of all, we should embrace the AI and use it for our productivity and efficiency purposes. And we should all be aware of the upcoming AI Act, and in the creditworthiness space especially, it will bring a lot of work to all of us. And while looking at what Leandro mentioned, there are a lot of tools, solutions that will also help us during this journey. So it is important to start with, first of all, the risk assessments and being aware what kind of risks we are carrying with the machine learning models or the AI systems that we are used as of today or we will use in the future. So getting ready with these kind of solutions and tools to tackle the requirements. Many thanks for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.